So, the man, the myth, the legend, Chad Johnson, responded to somebody's tweet and gave his top 5 Cincinnati Bengals receivers of all time. We're going to go through each one and kind of give my opinion / what I feel about it. Let's go and get right into it. So, the best receiver of all time, according to Chad Johnson, is very obvious because, listen, it's the man, 7-Eleven. Yup, number 1, baby, is 7-Eleven. I was kind of, not really, because if I had to list my top 5 of all time, I would say 7-Eleven is number 1. The only problem I would say with it is that I just don't really know as much about the past as like someone like Chad Johnson does. So I kind of expected him to put maybe himself at number 1 or someone like else on this list. But you know what? In all honesty, there's no reason why Chase should not be number 1. Chase has been an absolute dominant force for the Cincinnati Bengals and for Joe Burrow ever since he joined the league in 2021. I mean, 1,400 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards. I mean, he's putting up record numbers every single year. And I think he's now to a point where he's breaking every record for Cincinnati Bengals records. So, yeah, 1,000% deserves it. And to be honest, you know, we can only go up from here, right? So, number 2. Who's number 2? It's very obvious, guys. It's AJ Green. And to be honest, I kind of expected AJ Green to be number 1. And it's not that I think that AJ Green is far superior to Jamar Chase. I don't think so. But the thing is, AJ has, you know, had a whole career, right? He had a whole career. He played for, obviously, not only the Bengals, but also for the Arizona Cardinals for a time. But in his time with the Bengals, he had, what, 5 straight years of 1,000+ yard seasons. He had 6 total, almost to a point now where if it wasn't for him getting less than 1,000 yards this year, he would have had, what, 7 straight years of 1,000-yard seasons. And I truly believe that Chase is going to get there at one point, right? I do truly believe he will get there at one point. But, like, on his time so far, and again, like I said, at the end of the day, when you really compare it, you can't really compare this because at the end of the day, this is someone who's played for, you know, a certain amount of years versus someone who is just now brand new. Well, not brand new, but someone who is just in the beginning of his career. But with Cincinnati, he's put up 9,430 yards, 65 touchdowns. And again, Chase will easily, I think he'll get past that. I think he'll beat that, and I think he'll destroy those numbers. But still, like, you know, he is early in his career, which, to be honest, I mean, he's right on path to beat those numbers in all honesty. But yeah, so I kind of expected AJ Green to be number 1. I expected Chase to be number 2, just for this reason of, you know, Chase is great, but AJ Green was really something special. Isaac Curtis is number 3. So, again, like I said, when it comes to some of the older guys, I know who Isaac Curtis is. I don't remember him as much as a Bengal. I remember him as a Ram. That's just where I remember him as. Again, like I said, so actually no, wait, not. You know, I'm thinking of Toy Holt. I'm not thinking Isaac Curtis. Never mind. Yeah, Isaac Curtis was a Bengal his whole entire career. I'm thinking about Toy Holt for some reason. I don't know why. Alright, so Isaac Curtis in his whole entire career with us had 7,101 yards and 53 touchdowns. Absolutely freaking crazy numbers. Now, of course, he played in the 70s. And one thing we have to keep in mind, because a lot of times we kind of forget this when we're looking at greatest receivers of all time, or greatest at any position, is just how much the game was different back in the day. So while, yes, you know, you look at these numbers and you're like, oh, well, there's nothing compared to AJ Green or Jamar Chase. That is true, but the game was completely different. You didn't have guys back in the 70s, 60s, 50s that were throwing the ball for 6,000 yards a year. This just wasn't a thing. You know, nowadays you have quarterbacks that can throw it 4,000, 5,000 yards a season, and we kind of take it as like, okay, well, that's typical. Not 6,000, but usually around 4,000 to 5,000. And that's just typical. But back in the day, like back in the 60s, 70s, there really wasn't that much of an air game. There was a lot more of a run game, in all honesty. So, like, for example, I'm thinking about an older quarterback here. Bart Starr, let's say, he played way back. Yeah, he played 56 to 71. But, like, for example, his stat-wise, yards, the most he's ever thrown for was 2,400 yards. He was considered one of the best quarterbacks, right? Johnny Unitas, another really good quarterback, 56 to 73. 3,099 yards, 3,481 yards. That's a lot of yards back then. Dan Marino, let me see Dan Marino. Dan Marino, I feel like, was the guy who really pushed forward the envelope of passing yards. So, for example, 84, he put up 5,000 yards, which was crazy. Back in the day when Dan Marino was a thing, he was the guy who was, like, pushing the envelope of how many passing yards you would have. And I feel like the 80s, 90s, under Joe Montana, under Steve Young, under a lot of these other guys, really pushed the envelope. But back in the 70s, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I know I have a lot of older guys who watch my content, it just wasn't a thing as much. It was like the pass game and the run game was not the same concept. So, yeah, so Isaac Curtis, like, putting up in the 70s, that numbers is really amazing. Even though, yes, again, like I said, to today's standards, you might sit there and say, I don't know if that's that great, but, like, it actually is. And also you got to look at the level of quarterback play for the Bengals at that said time. So, again, there's a lot of factors, but, nowadays we have Joe Burrow, best quarterback in histories, but, back in the day is also a little bit different there. All right, number 4, Carl Pickens. Carl Pickens, not surprising there. Again, like I said, it's kind of funny because when I think of my list, these guys would be on the list, probably outside of Isaac Curtis as much, just because I forgot about him. Like, and hey, listen, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm very honest. I honestly forgot about him. I forgot about him when I first saw my top 5 list. And also, again, I'm like more than a newer generation of Bengals fans. So when I thought my list, I put T on that list. And, I did a disservice, I'll say, to Isaac Curtis, who was absolutely amazing for us. But I thought about T. All right. Okay, Carl Pickens here. His time with us in his, again, more closer to 92,000. So you see a lot more 1,000-yard seasons. 6,800 yards, 63 touchdowns. I mean, amazing. Absolutely amazing. He had a total of 3 1,000-plus yard seasons in a row. Then, of course, he had 1,000 yards in 1998. And, again, like I said, absolutely deserves to be a top 5 Cincinnati Bengal of all time. And number 5, of course, is Chad Johnson. And he put himself on there because, you know what? I got to give Chad credit. I kind of expected him to be number 1. And I wouldn't have been mad about him being number 1. Like, again, because he is Chad Johnson. I mean, 2001 to 2010. The man put up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1,000-yard seasons in a row. And then, obviously, another 1,000-yard season. I wouldn't have been mad about him putting himself in number 1 because he deserves to be up there at least in the top 3. I'm surprised he put himself at number 5. 10,783 yards, 66 touchdowns for us. Yeah. So I guess if I had to put the list together here, I would probably put Chase number 1, AJ number 2, Chad number 3, Carl Pickens number 4, and Isaac Curtis number 5. That would probably be how I put the list together. But again, like I said, I'm a newer generation of Bengals fan. So, Isaac Curtis, I knew of him, but I didn't know as much as I know today now. Again, like I said, very awesome. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next one. Peace out.